In the small, forgotten town of Black Hollow, people spoke of a place they refused to name after sunset. It stood on the edge of town, where the road twisted into the forest, a towering Victorian house with rotting shutters and a roof that sagged under years of neglect. The locals called it the Hollow House. Its once white paint had faded into the sickly yellow of old teeth, and ivy had claimed most of its outer walls. The garden was nothing more than a jungle of weeds, and a broken iron gate swayed with the wind, groaning like an old man in pain. But the strangest thing about the Hollow House was the attic window. Every year, on the night of October 29th, a single candle would appear there, its tiny flame glowing faintly against the darkness. No one knew who lit it. No one dared to check. People remembered the Whitaker family, Robert, his wife Margaret, and their young daughter Lily. In 1952, they vanished overnight. The door was left unlocked, dinner half-eaten on the table, and the radio still playing soft jazz. No sign of forced entry, no sign of struggle. It was as though they had simply stood up and walked away from life itself. Some claimed Robert Whitaker had been dabbling in strange rituals, trying to speak with the dead after losing his first wife years before. Others said Margaret's voice could still be heard singing lullabies to no one long after midnight. It was this legend that drew three college friends, Jack, Aaron, and Michael, to Black Hollow one cold October evening. They weren't locals. They had heard the story online and decided to film a short documentary for their paranormal YouTube channel. They laughed about it in the car, but when the house came into view, all laughter stopped. It stood under the pale moonlight, bigger than they expected. Its dark windows seemed to stare down at them, and the attic window, yes, it was there, was already glowing with that faint, flickering light. Jack smirked, pulling out his camera. Perfect timing. Let's make history. But Aaron didn't smile. Why is the candle lit already? We're early. Michael shrugged. Maybe some kids are trying to spook us. Let's give them a show. They walked up the cracked stone path, each step crunching dead leaves beneath their feet. The gate creaked open without a touch. The front door stood closed, but a faint smell of burnt wax drifted into the night air. Jack reached for the doorknob, and it turned too easily, as if someone had just opened it for them.
Inside, the air was colder than the October night outside. Not the sharp cold of winter, but the heavy, suffocating chill that clings to the skin. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing layers of dust and cobwebs. Yet there was something off. The air wasn't stale. It smelled faintly of burning wax, old wood, and something metallic, like rust or blood. To the left was a living room, its furniture covered in white sheets, the shapes beneath suggesting old armchairs and a long couch. On the mantel sat a clock, its pendulum swinging, though the clock hands were frozen at 11:47. Aaron stepped closer, brushing off the dust, but as soon as her hand touched it, the pendulum stopped. Michael was filming everything, whispering into the camera, "We're inside the Hollow House. First impressions, it feels like the place is awake." They moved into the hallway. The walls were lined with portraits of people they didn't recognize, men and women from decades ago, all dressed in stiff formal clothing. Their painted eyes followed the friends down the hall. Jack stopped at one portrait of a stern-looking man with deep-set eyes. That's probably Robert Whitaker. Looks like he could kill someone just by staring. The kitchen was next. The linoleum floor was curling at the edges, and a layer of dust coated every surface except the stove. On it sat a kettle. Aaron, curious, reached out and touched it. She gasped and pulled back immediately. "It's hot! Really hot!" Jack laughed nervously. "Maybe someone's squatting here." That's when they heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps above them. They froze. The sound was steady, moving across the ceiling toward the far corner of the house. Aaron's eyes widened. "That's the attic." Michael lowered his camera slightly. "Maybe it's the wind." But Jack shook his head. "Wood doesn't creak like that unless someone's on it."
The staircase groaned as Jack placed his foot on the first step. It wasn't the usual sound of old wood. This was deeper, almost like a low growl from within the house itself. Aaron gripped the banister, her knuckles turning white. Michael kept filming, his flashlight's beam shaking slightly. Halfway up, a draft of cold air swept past them, carrying with it the faint smell of lavender and burnt wax. Aaron froze. "Do you smell that?" she whispered. Jack nodded, but didn't turn back. "Keep going, we're almost there." At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched into shadow, lined with doors, all slightly open, as though they were expecting visitors. The wallpaper was peeling in long strips, revealing rotting wood beneath. Somewhere far off, a faint humming could be heard, soft and steady. They followed the sound, passing rooms filled with abandoned furniture, dust-covered toys, and curtains that swayed though no wind touched them. In one bedroom, a rocking chair moved back and forth by itself, the floorboards creaking in perfect rhythm. The humming grew louder as they approached the last door on the left, the one leading to the attic. Jack swallowed hard. "That's it. The candle's up there." Michael's voice trembled. "I don't like this, man. What if someone's actually in there?" Jack smirked. "That's the point. Let's find out." The attic door opened with a loud, aching squeal. The room beyond was low-ceilinged, filled with dust motes swirling in the candlelight. And there it was, the infamous candle, sitting on a small table in the center of the room. Its flame danced, but not like any flame they had seen before. It moved in a steady rhythm, like it was breathing. Aaron stepped forward, drawn to it. "It's beautiful." Michael pulled her back. "Don't touch it." Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut behind them, the sound echoing like a gunshot. The candlelight flared, casting their shadows huge and twisted on the walls. But the shadows, they moved differently from their bodies.
The temperature in the attic dropped instantly, their breath turning into pale mist. Erin clutched her jacket tight, her eyes darting to the corners of the room. "Jack, the shadows, they're not ours." Michael's flashlight flickered, then died completely. The only light was from the candle, now burning taller, its flame stretching unnaturally high. The shadows on the walls began to shift, taking shape into tall, distorted figures with hollow, featureless faces. A low whisper filled the room, so quiet it could have been the wind. But then the whisper turned into many whispers, overlapping, speaking in a language none of them understood. Jack tried the door, but it wouldn't budge. He slammed his shoulder into it, but it felt like pushing against stone. One of the shadow figures detached itself from the wall, gliding silently toward Erin. She stumbled backward, her hand knocking over a dusty box. Photographs spilled across the floor. Black and white pictures of the Whitaker family. In each one, the faces were scratched out. Michael grabbed one of the photos and held it up to the candlelight. "These are the people from the portraits downstairs." The whispers grew louder, then suddenly stopped. For a heartbeat, the attic was completely silent. Then, in unison, the shadows turned their heads toward the three friends. A single voice spoke, deep, cold, and impossibly close.
"You shouldn't be here." The candle's flame went out.
Darkness swallowed them whole. Jack's heart pounded so loud he thought it might burst. "Stay together!" he shouted, but the sound seemed swallowed by the black. Something brushed past Michael, cold and heavy, and he screamed. Erin reached for him, but her hand touched only air. Then, out of nowhere, the candle flared back to life, but now it burned blue, casting a sickly light over the attic. The shadows were gone, or so they thought. Slowly, shapes began to emerge from the corners. Not shadows, but people. The Whitaker family stood there, pale and smiling, their eyes empty. Margaret stepped forward, her voice soft and sweet, like a lullaby. "Stay with us, just for tonight." Jack backed away but hit the wall. "We don't belong here!" Robert Whitaker's smile widened unnaturally. "No, you do now." The blue flame twisted, and the air grew thick, making it hard to breathe. One by one, their flashlights exploded with a sharp pop, plunging them into darkness again. When neighbors passed by the next morning, the hollow house stood silent. The candle still burned in the attic window, its small flame swaying gently in the daylight. There was no sign of Jack, Erin, or Michael. But that night, October 30th, the candle burned again, and if you looked closely at the window, you could swear you saw 3 new faces staring back at you.